This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A vulture is perched up in a dead tree. Is it just sleeping, or is there something dead down below? Welcome to your live African safari. Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. We are Prrivate here in the WILDwatch Game Reserve, which is part of the greater Kruger National Park. Remember, for the first 45 minutes of this game drive, we send yours through as well. You can hashtag a WildEarth and we'll get to them a little bit later. My name is Taylor McCurdy and on camera with me is Hat. We're very excited to be up and early this morning. That vulture has given me goosebumps, but that could also just be the cold. But I'm ready for your questions, so please send them on through. I don't think anything is perched. I think that this might be one of the vultures that are nesting week or so. We've actually showed you a vulture nesting on a tree. So I think that this might be the other adult. Both. So that's just the one white vulture. You can see itself up a big yawn. It's for the day. The safari guide. If you go to meet Henry.
We're going live? Good morning and welcome to this end of the Sunrise Safari. My name is James Hendry, on camera is BK. That's his thumb. I don't know if we do that anymore. Anyway, we're sitting here with a hippopotamouse, and this hippopotamouse is in the water, off of which the mist is rising, on account of the temperature differential between the water, which is warmer, than the air outside, which is very cold. I think it's probably about, I'm going to say 8 degrees Celsius odd, and that water is probably around 15 or 16. And so that's why the water's, well, that's probably why the hippopotamouse is hiding in his watery sleeping bag. I hope you're all very well today. Please do talk to us, of course, using the hashtag WildEarth. Alternatively, you can use the chat stream on YouTube. And we do hope that we will have a drive full of signal. Let us now listen to the dawn chorus. Relatively quiet today. Hornbills loudly that you can hear. A couple of francolins. And if you've got very sharp ears, excellent speakers, you may just have heard the sound of a Varro's eagle owl in the background. Gizmo, yes, all mammals get cold. I'm just going to ask BK to go down towards a green-backed heron, which is just on the, it's fishing there. Can you see it, BK? On the edge there of the sticks. Gizmo, hippos do get cold in the same way that birds do and all warm-blooded animals do. They feel cold because they must maintain an internal body temperature of roughly 36 degrees Celsius. Birds, it's a bit more. And the feeling of cold comes from your body basically messaging itself to warm up. So you feel cold and your body then takes action. There we go. He's fishing. Probably not fishing, maybe frogging. I don't know what he's doing. And so your body then starts to produce more energy or burns more energy to stay warm. Now, hippo has got a very big covering of blubber, and so is well insulated. Probably doesn't get as cold as something like a bushveld gerbil, for example. It will have a much more constant temperature. We'll have to expend less energy trying to maintain that body temperature per unit of mass, that is. Isn't he gorgeous, this chap? Now, feathers, of course, are a more effective insulator than hair. And so birds probably find it slightly easier to stay warm than do hairy mammals or blubbery mammals. I think this greenbacked heron is actually taking insects off the surface of the water. Now, many of you will have been watching this show for many years, and many of you will be naturalists who visit areas like this, and you'll know that the greenbacked heron is a remarkable bird because it fishes using bait. So it will take an insect like the ones it's plucking there, and then kill them, and then lay them on the surface of the water close to where they're standing and wait for a fish to rise and then grab that fish. It's absolutely remarkable. Yes, CJ, it's always nice, the mist in the mornings coming off the water. I always find it really fresh, I suppose. It looks kind of fresh, the new start of the day, which it is. Slightly eerie, of course. Now, this is also the waterhole in which we had the little grebes. In fact, I can see them, BK, the other side there. And for those of you who don't know, we watched a couple of little grebes raising their bebes here from eggies. We had them as eggies, and there you can see at least two of them knocking about. I don't know if those are the two chicks. Those may well be the two chicks that are now in juvenile plumage, but I don't know. It's been a long time since I saw them. Anyway, the grebes are still about. The heron is still fishing. There's a little island of sticks there. Let's have one last look at the heron. Let's see what he's doing. Marvellous. We'll continue down towards the central parts of Djuma, hoping to find sign of Thandi, the leopardess, or her cub. You're going to go to Ngala.
A warm welcome to all the kids from all around the world. So we just stopped here to have a look at the sun's rise. And of course, as we were sitting here, this hyena just decided to walk past. So I'm Nikki here at andBeyond in Ngala. I'm going to be your ranger today. And with me on the camera is Owen. So I think for now, let's see if we can follow this hyena for a little bit. And then from there on, we'll try and just show you the sunrise this morning. But I wonder where he might, or she even might be off to this morning. I know there were some lions yesterday in the area, so it might be a good opportunity for this particular, just to go and scavenge, see if there's maybe any scraps left from the evening, maybe from a leopard that might have had a carcass. That sometimes if there's little scraps of meat or bones that fall out of the tree onto the ground, they'll go and pick it up. But I just want to, from here on, that hyena is moving off, and we'll try and see if we can get another glimpse. But for now, should we have a look at that sunrise? Now, to me, one of my favorite things in the African bush, of course, is the sunrises and the sunset. Now, my grandfather was the one that got me into the bush, because from a very young age, I was always inspired by him, or my great-grandfather was always inspired by him, and the way that he always spoke about the bush and how people spoke about his life and what he said. And my grandmother eventually wrote a book about him, and in the back of the book one of his favorite sayings was he wished he could have swapped anything for a camera, because he didn't have a camera at the time, because he said, because no sunrise nor sunset in Africa has ever been the same. But just look at how beautiful that is. And I think not too long, you can actually see the sun like slowly starting to peak just above that little layer of trees in front of us, or more bushes. And I think if we give it another minute or two, we might just find quite a nice view of the sun. So, and if you can you zoom in a little bit there, I think I might be able to see the sun through that peak. Have a look at that. It's such a beautiful wash of colors, because you can just see of course the silhouette of all the trees, and it's now that time of the year where most of the trees will start losing their leaves, and so therefore when the elephants move through the area, they'll often push over the trees to get to the roots, because now, instead of having everything stored, all the nutrients stored in the leaves, the plants will then store it in the roots in order to protect itself, and also have that energy so that in the next growing season, so whenever there's rain, they can actually push out again and have those leaves. But for now, most of the nutrients are stored in roots. So now you'll find elephants will actually start pushing over trees to get to those delicious nutrient-filled roots. Have a look at that. That's it. So we're just trying to position so we can show everyone that beautiful sun that's slowly starting to rise. Felix, now with the sun, so basically it's like the moon as well. So when the sun and the moon rises, it looks a lot bigger than seeing it of course, in the middle of the sky. And the reason for it is because of all the objects around it. So basically, when the sun moves up, you can't compare it against anything, and therefore it looks a lot further away than it actually is. Whereas with now, it's not necessarily a lot closer to the Earth. It's exactly the same distance, but because of everything around it, it looks a lot bigger, because we can actually compare it. We can actually almost have a holistic view of it, an all-around view of the sun, as well as we can compare it against things around us. But once it moves up, we start losing that perspective. It's hard to explain, but I think the best way to explain is because of everything that we can basically see and compare the sun with, it looks a lot bigger. But as soon as it moves up, we can't compare it against anything, and it looks a lot further away. So it almost creates like a bit of an optical illusion when it's this close. How quickly is it not rising? So it's so beautiful, because if you sit here, you can see the sun rising, but then suddenly the noises start changing, because eventually when it's dark, you don't hear a lot of birds. You might just hear the distant call of a southern ground hornbill, and you just hear doo 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 doo, and eventually it slowly starts increasing, and then you hear the starlings and you hear the franklins, and it's just one bird after another, and before you know, there's this whole morning chorus of birds that are singing, and then you can hear the hyenas whooping in the distance. And what we try to do as well is we try to listen out for any sounds of possibly lions calling, or maybe even leopards rasping, because a leopard often it sounds like this big sort of like a we haven't heard anything yet, but if we do hear that, Seth, you can, like with the sun. Basically, as we were driving this morning, myself and Owen said it was so cold, and as you sit down here, like the first little part, it almost feels like it's a bit cooler, and then as the sun's rising, you can actually feel there's a bit of temperature rising, and it also gives you this very warm, comforty feeling that today is going to be a nice and warm day. So I think it's also a lot mentally for us, but you can definitely feel the temperature increasing as the sun is getting higher and higher. And I think the best way to explain it is just like it's quite nice and cool this morning, but suddenly through this cool air, there's this little tinge of warm light that actually creeps through from the sun. I would say that's the best way to describe it. If you look at the sun, compare it against that. Nancy, how beautiful is that tree? So if you look at that little horizontal branch, you might actually see the sun moving closer and closer. And it's incredible, like, to see the sun moving like that. Because earlier on, we didn't have the sun at all. But in the last little while, I mean, it's moved completely above those small shrubs that were right in front of it, and almost like halfway up the tree. And I don't think it's going to be long. I think in the next 10 minutes it'll probably be above the tree that we are looking at, that beautiful tree in the distance that we're looking at now. It might even be above that. But I think this is one of the things that really just makes, I think, and most of the rangers, and especially those that have visited, you can imagine with most people that have visited Africa, or even in other parts of the world, like whenever you look at a sunrise or sunset, it is just such a beautiful event. But I think for now, while we're enjoying this and we're going to slowly move on, let's head across to Lauren and see what she's up to this morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. We are also enjoying the glorious colours of the morning. We can't quite see the sun popping up, but we can see those marshmallow colours in front of us. My name is Lauren, and I do have Davy on camera today, and we've just been navigating our way through the reserve because elephants are uprooting all the trees here, and it's not making it easy to actually get across the roads. Now, you can be brave and get out and try and move the trees, but that's not always possible. So they're creating massive blockages on the roads, so we're going to have to try and move them because it's not okay just to drive around them and create new roads. Now, I'm going to quickly tell you about my plan today. We're going to leave Djuma and pop into Simbambili. Why? Well, we came across a new leopardess yesterday. A leopardess called Insele, who I believe is Tiani's sister. Yes, you may not know these names, I also didn't, but she's a new leopardess. She's older, she's 11 years old, and she only has one eye. She's gorgeous. But the most important thing was we found her on Simbambili and she crossed into Djuma. She did leave then, she went into Buffelshoek, but she could still be around. So I think I'm going to look for signs of her and see if we can introduce you to a gorgeous new leopardess of the morning. Now, we're not quite sure what she's doing, because this is not her territory, but we hope to see her. Dan, you're 11 years old and you're asking how strong is an elephant's trunk in order to be able to pull it out. An elephant's trunk has absolutely no bones, just muscle. And there's so many muscles in there, especially in comparison to the human body. The human body only has around 639 muscles, and an elephant's trunk has thousands and thousands and thousands of muscles in it, and therefore it's incredibly strong. They use the trunk for, well, a variety of reasons: to touch, to communicate, to smell, to grasp, like a hand, to pull, like an arm, to taste, like a tongue, and as a snorkel. So they can actually put their trunk out of the water while they're swimming and use it as a snorkel. And you can see, to be able to knock trees over just with your trunk and maybe a little nudge from your body, that's very impressive. And I think that just shows you exactly how strong a trunk is. And an elephant's trunk actually has prehensile tips. And what that means is that it has 2 little tips. An African elephant has 2 tips, one on the top and one on the bottom. So at the very end, you'll see 2 prehensile tips, which helps the trunk to actually grasp things. Now, an Asian elephant only has 1 prehensile tip, so only at the top. So that's why they're slightly different, but that's how the trunk is actually able to grab and pull grass and vegetation and all sorts of delicious things from the ground. And the length of the trunk is actually fascinating, because when they swing it round from side to side, it actually reaches halfway along the body, and the tail can come and meet it. And therefore, the whole body is covered when you want to swat off all those flies. So I think it's now time that we head into Simbambili.
So, just for all the kids, to tell you what our plans are going to be for this afternoon, or for this morning, is, so myself and Owen had a little bit of a chat this morning. He said, all right, what are we going to do? Are we going to first start looking out for some leopard? Are we going to go look for lion, maybe a hyena? What is our plan? So we decided, you know what? Yesterday there was that lioness with the young cubs that was seen near the river. And we just thought, you know what, we're going to go and see if there's any potential sign of finding this lioness with the youngsters. But also, as we go along, we're going to start looking out for some of the smaller things, the possible things that we might sometimes just be driving past, and just see if there's something very interesting out this morning. But that's going to be our plan. And if by any chance there's any signs of leopard, we can always just change our plan a little bit. But Yapi, one of the other rangers, and Eric, who will be driving tomorrow, they're also currently looking out. I just want to see something before. Oh, I think there might be some seeds here. I'm just going to stop like this. There's a very big tree right next to us here, so I just want us to just angle the camera, and then we'll have a look at this beautiful tree. There's actually something very interesting about this tree that I want to show all the kids. Now, it is cold, so my legs don't work very well this early in the morning, but I just want to see if I can potentially possibly get some of the seeds of this tree. Here we go. The elephants have actually helped me out. There's actually a few of them. Now, if you look around here, I'm just going to quickly go down like this just to show you. So you'll notice that this whole area here, there's not a lot of grass. You'll notice it's a lot of loose sand that's around here, and that's because a lot of animals have moved around, and most of them probably kudu. There's a chance it might have been elephant. There were some giraffes earlier on. But this tree that we've been having a look at earlier on, it's called the torchwood or greenwood. Greenthorn is another name for him. But the torchwood, what's really nice about it is, so it has these little seeds. It almost look like a rugby ball, so very oval shape. And people would take this seed and, of course, crush it and then get the oil from it. And that oil can be used as a torch. So if you burn it, it burns for quite a while. So we've tried it one day, and it burns for, I would say, quite a few minutes. But those are you can see the flesh has already been stripped off. So I can just imagine a kudu grabbing this, like as it was eating it, like moving it around. And eventually, after it got all the delicious flesh off of it, it's spit it out and landed on the ground. So eventually from here on, imagine a few years later, under the right conditions, we might have another big tree like this, but this one might be hundreds of years old. Thought I just wanted to show all the kids. It's very interesting. I just want to point out the elephant dung here as well. So remember, when talking about elephants, possibly kudu, but so you'll just notice this big tubular structure here. Let me come closer, show the kids. Also, how do we know it's elephant dung and possibly not any of the other animals? So if you look inside here, you'll notice there's quite a few leaves. So right over here, see that? So this is a leaf over here. So if I pull that out, so that's a leaf. And then right over here is some bark material. Now remember earlier Lauren was talking about the elephant's trunk and how they push over trees and that. So basically, if I break it inside, there's a lot of coarse material. If this had to be, let's say, a rhino, the rhino would only have grass in it, so no sticks and no leaves. If it was a black rhino, you'll only have sticks in it. And it also, it has this bit of, you see it has like a orangey tinge to it, like an orange color. And that orange color is because of the tannins. So tannins is basically a chemical inside the tree. So if the animals eat the leaves, the tree will produce more tannin, which makes it taste unpleasant. So they won't eat the whole tree. So that's a tree's way of protecting itself. So there's different ways for a tree to protect, but that's one of them. And that's the orangey color you see here. So black rhino will have twigs and leaves and branches, and it would be a reddish color. The white rhino would be, of course, green as well as gray in color. And then, of course, the elephant is a combination of both, because they eat grass as well as they eat trees and leaves and that. So that's why, hence the color. If you break it up, there's grass and there's twigs inside here and leaves. Oh, I'm going to make a coffee with these hands for Owen a little bit later, full of elephant dung. Now 11, so with the tree, I think we'll just stop here to have a look. So the reason why it's probably called the green thorn as well is, like, if you had to look at the young tree growing, so the young trees that grow, I'm just trying to see, there's no, no, I think the one right next to it, you know what, I think this one right next to it might be a youngster. So the young trees are very green in color, and as they get older, of course, the outer bark has this very rough grayish color. So I just want to have a look at the one next to it to see if it's also possibly a... No, it's not one of those. I'm just trying to... No. So these trees here don't have that color. But if I had to compare it, the young torchwoods would probably, when they start, they'll have a green color like this. So this is not one of them, but it will probably be like a greenish color. You'll see there's some green growths or some young growths over there, but it's normally the small trees are very green in color. And as they get older, of course, they start getting this very hard outer bark. Because if you had to strip this, I'm sure you'll probably still find a little bit of greenery inside of it. But how nice is this for an elephant? Imagine an elephant coming down, picking up some fruits, and eventually has a little itch. It'll be able to see that first branch that's coming out there. So just to compare how big an elephant would be. So right there, that first branch there, so that's probably the height of an elephant. And imagine how an elephant will just come up and rub like against this tree to possibly get rid of some of the ticks or maybe that itch that it has. But a beautiful, beautiful morning. Really cold as well. Mainly now there's with the leaves, how it produces food for the plants is through a process known as photosynthesis. So within a plant, you have, of course, different cells in that, but they consist of something called chloroplast. And that chloroplast is basically, once the sun hits it, it converts that energy into sugars that's necessary for the plant's growth. So it's a whole process, and I mean, you can definitely do a little bit. There's quite a few videos about it, like the explaining photosynthesis and explaining how the whole process works. But basically, it's converting sunlight into sugars and possibly everything the tree would need. And then from there on, it's taken from the leaves all the way down to the roots. And so on the outside of that tree, so just imagine you're looking at the tree. So the outside is quite the rough bark, and it's really hard. And just inside all that hard bark is this very thin layer. And it consists out of these small, you can almost call them veins. It's called vascular bundles, and they have xylem and phloem in them, and basically they are the ones that will transport the water and the nutrients from the roots all the way up to the leaves, and from the leaves all the way down to the roots. So that's why if an elephant strips the outer bark of a tree, the tree would die, because there's no way then for the tree to move that up and down. Right, so we slowly carry on with our drive. Let's see what other interesting little things in trees and possibly lions we can find out there. Oh, and you know what? There's another interesting tree of mine that's right over here. There's actually 2 of them here. And these are in the sun, but let's quickly stop. I just want to point this out, and then we're going to do our lion search. So you'll notice this one has quite big leaves. We're just going to position the camera before I continue to talk, because I at least want you to follow. But have a look at the size of these leaves. Now, this tree, if you look at that, look at the size. It's called an apple leaf. Now, you're probably going to ask, why call it an apple leaf? Because it doesn't really look like an apple. Now, apparently where the name comes from is if you tear the leaf, it sounds like someone taking a green apple and biting into the apple. So, shall we give it a go? So my microphone, so whenever I talk to you, you can hear me via the little microphone. The microphone is embedded right here in my hat. So I'm going to try and keep this quite close to the hat and tear it. And then I'm going to ask the kids to let me know if you can hear if it sounds like an apple being eaten by someone. You can see it's a very brittle leaf. It breaks very easily. But I would like to know from the kids if you heard that. If not, imagine biting into an apple, and that's how it would sound like. All right, let's do our lion search. So I think for now, while we're going to do our lion search and see what beautiful animals we can find along the way, as we're looking out for these lions, we're going to send you back to andBeyond Phinda. And apparently, we're going to meet up with Clive. Now, let's hear what Clive's plans are for the morning and wish him the best of luck. All right, sorry about that. I heard we couldn't go to Phinda, but I'm sure we'll probably be heading there soon. So in the meanwhile, we're on our way looking out for lions. Now, early part of the morning, I can just imagine a lion nest with some young cubs. Possibly if she's not hunting, she'll move into the sun just to get a little bit of that morning sun. So you'll see here, it's very dense, a lot of shade, so I don't think it's going to be here. So that's why we need to go into the riverbed. So the riverbed's not too far away from here. There's actually, as we carry on with this road, there's a little turn we do, and from there on, we start heading into the river. And once we get in there, we're going to be starting looking out on the banks. Possibly, I know we're mentioning there could be a chance of finding the lions in the riverbed, but there's also a chance of finding leopard. So remember that. So next time you go on a safari, or next time you're planning on going on a safari, early on in the winter's morning, if there's a riverbed nearby, always go and have a look there. And that's where you'll start. And just make sure there's a bit of sunlight as well. Like for us, you can see I'm probably shivering quite a bit. And that's because it's quite cold. And just like those lions, we're going to be trying to move into the areas where there's quite a bit of sun. Oh, there's some Impala right over here. I just want to move a little bit forward in there, see if we can get a glimpse of them. Just going to stop like this. Oh, there's two. Oh, there you guys. So there's actually just only 2 Impala that I can see, and I can actually hear some hyenas in the back as well. But if you look at their color, do you see this one? Looks like he has very dark pattern on top of his back, or very dark shades, and that's because he's all puffed up. You can imagine early on in the morning, like we would get goosebumps when it's cold. When an antelope gets goosebumps, his hair would rise up, like that Impala that we saw right over there. So they have moved off. So I think for now, let's carry on. Lyra, that's a really good question. I would say with the Impala, they can move anywhere around the reserve, so they don't have a specific place, especially with these young males, because as soon as if the food starts getting less and less here, they'll start moving to other areas. But just notice, you'll notice all of them have horns. So we're just going to get a little bit closer to the one that you can see off right in front of the screen. And you'll notice with all of them, as we mentioned, they have horns. So they are a little group of bachelors. So in other words, they're a bunch of males that are sticking together. And why they do that is because of safety in numbers. You can imagine now, these lions, there's possibly a leopard in this area. There's a chance for wild dogs. A good chance that there's even if they go to the waterhole, there could be possibly crocodiles as well. So for them, it's all about safety in numbers. And the more they are together, the safer they are, because there's a lot of eyes, there's a lot more ears. You'll notice some of them, when they feed, the others will pick up their heads. Oh, see that one? The one started running and that one got a fright. I do apologize for a little bit of signal this morning. So you can imagine we are in the African bush, so signal's not always the best. But I mean, that's what makes it so special, and that's what creates the African experience. It's just being out there in the unknown. Well, we do know a little bit of what's going on, but you know what I mean.
sorry about the technical experience that we were having. Sorry, difficulties is what I was supposed to say there, but never fear, we've got a giraffe now. But that's not the most exciting thing about this scene. It's just in the distance here at Pridelands, you might be able to see a jackal, a black-backed jackal. Yes, I'm talking about you, munching on something. Now, there was two of them. One is a little bit more shy than the other and has darted off. Now, just as hyenas are expert scavengers, so are the jackals. And I don't know what they're actually eating. But they both had, it looked like some bones in their mouth. I'm just trying to see, I don't know if it was a bird or a scrub hare. Definitely something small. Oh, look at its face. Why are you doing that, jackal? What have you seen? Just checking something out. There we go. Now, see, it's very difficult to tell what it actually has. Maybe if it picks it up again, we can see. But it's also struggling to eat it, as you can see. So it keeps pinning it down onto the ground, getting nice and low, and trying to pull smaller bits off. So I think a creature of that size, it should be able to crunch through the bones. No, you're going to take it away? I wonder if it is like a little scrub hare or something. There are so many scrub hares around at the moment, and jackals, as good as they are at scavenging, they're actually very good at hunting smaller mammal species and birds. They're incredibly good at it. I don't know where the other one has disappeared, I'm afraid, but I am quite fond of these animals. And the reason for that is I got to spend so much time with some youngsters. That's what's happening. There's elephants running across the road with giraffe. Oh, one elephant literally just fell down. Oh my goodness, don't run too quickly. I don't know if there are any more that are going to come across there, but look, just behind the giraffe's head, a herd of elephants very quietly stampeded across the road. Oh, you may have heard that little trumpet. But one tripped and fell. I've never seen an elephant trip and fall before, but it got up quite quickly. That was surprising. So we're just driving the northern boundary because I want to see if we can find any lions that have crossed in, but no luck just yet. Oh, those elephants are very upset now. Maybe it was embarrassed, that one that fell over. Oh, they're crashing through the trees. I wonder if they got wind of something, and that's why they all started running like that. Goodness, we'll never catch up to them. I'm sure you can all hear that. Thompson, I think jackals have got a pretty good sense of smell. You can see it, so very much like a dog. It is in the Canidae family, so nice elongated snout. Normally a good sign that they rely on their sense of smell. So if you look at foxes and things like that too, you know, that will utilize their noses. These guys do very much the same thing. So you'll often see jackals scouring the open plains, trying to find a nest on the ground so that they can eat eggs, because they eat just about anything. They also eat fruit and all sorts of wonderful things. So they definitely use those big ears and those noses to help find things. Elephants also, which we will hopefully see in a moment, have got an incredible sense of smell too. Now the jackal has done feasting and hiding behind the branches, and will most likely go and rest up for the rest of the day. I think that they're done and it'll be time to settle in. Right, off you go to Tswalu Kalahari to see what Dylan is doing. I believe he's out of the car and walking around.
Another amazingly good morning to you all. It is fantastic having you able to join us again today at Tswalu Kalahari, and Jandre on camera, and my name's Dylan. Just join us on another safari this morning. It's going to be a great day. We have some friends just behind us over here. They were actually just lying sleeping, just chewing the cud about 15-20 minutes ago. It was still quite dark here at the time, and they've just got up and started moving now for the day. So my guess is they're probably going to feed a bit, then go down to water. There's a watering hole about 1.5 kilometers in the direction that they're facing. So we'll see. Our plan this morning is we're going to head up to the Meerkats, the rock stars. We know that that Meerkat alpha has dropped her pups now. That was about 4 days ago. So we're looking at roughly in a week and a half when those tiny, tiny, tiny little pups are going to be brought above ground for the first time. Sometimes it is sooner, and I think that's what we really want to capitalize on, and we make sure we don't miss it. We have a meerkat habituator, Veronique, that is working hard every single day, keeping tabs on where these meerkats are. It's just making sure that we don't miss any opportunity there. But yeah, it's just going to be an amazing day, and as always, please feel free to ask questions, engage. I was doing some reading. Oh, we have a question for you. We've got a question. I'm going to come close, then I'm going to back out quickly. Okay, don't go anywhere. Stay with us. This is okay. Here's the thing. Okay, so remember we picked up this lad yesterday. We picked up this massive millipede yesterday. His bone dry is dead. So my question to you, in Afrikaans they're called a duisend poot, which means 1,000 feet. Okay, so I sat yesterday on the game drive vehicle, and we counted the legs or the feet on this thing. Well, the legs. It's got the same amount of feet as legs, I guess, I hope. Jeandre helped me count them. But so my question to you is, how many legs do you think this millipede has? Do you want me to come a bit closer there? So there's the question for this one. You can take guesses, and any kids that get the answer right, your parents will get you free baby mice or rats or hamsters for Christmas. Or not. But anyway, so there's the question. How many legs do you think this millipede has? All right. Let's go find some meerkats. We're going to take a slow amble down the road. But it's nice to see these buffalo as well. So they are one of the big five. And I'm sure those of you have been on safaris before in Africa, and those of you, have been down to Djuma, Ngala, Phinda, those places, would have seen many, many buffalo prior to this. But yeah, it's just nice to see this small herd of bachelor bulls moving off and begin feeding. There goes one there. And just in terms of danger here, the lens kind of compresses the perspective. So we are still, where I was standing is probably still 150 meters away from this buffalo. Fulma has just asked why, a great question, very good question. Why have the birds or something else not eaten that millipede? Okay, millipedes are very, very, very distasteful. They have got a cyanide compound in them. So things can eat it, but normally in very small quantities. And typically what you'll see, it's or certainly what we've observed in our area, it's not the preferred prey item of anything out here. There are scorpions in some areas. We don't get them here, but they're called rock scorpions. They love eating millipedes like us, and they obviously have a high tolerance for any of those chemical compounds in them. I've seen meerkats eating them with long teeth that don't like eating them normally. So you'll tend to find if it's in poor seasons, then and other food resources are limited, then they'll start going for food items like this. Birds, I'm sure birds can and would eat them occasionally. I haven't seen that personally, but it's not a good food item, and they're also hard. They like really crunchy things. They got these chemical compounds in them. They roll up into a defensive ball, a spiral disc that many of you may be well familiar with. So it's not an ideal food item for a bird. And also this particular one, it's died a long time ago. That thing is just bone dry. There's probably no moisture left in that thing, so that wouldn't be a good meal for anything. But yeah, there are animals that eat them, and like so, even things like in some areas, things like civets will go for millipedes as well. And then they do fall prey to a number of invertebrates. You get these millipede assassin beetles. They're called assassin beetles. and a specific one called the millipede assassin. And sometimes you'll just find like clusters of these beetles on top of these millipedes, and they actually just get their little proboscis in between those joints, and then they just suck them dry. So yeah, they do fall prey to some things, but birds, I don't think they like higher on the priority list of birds for feeding. But anything out here is a potential food source for something. Doesn't matter what it is, you know. And I know this sounds really weird and crazy, but even if you look at rocks, I mean, the food that the grasses here, these trees, they are feeding on the nutrients in the soil, and the nutrients in the soil comes from the actual sand breaking down, decaying vegetation and stuff in the ground. We've got beautiful little plants. Many of you may be familiar with them. It's a crazy group of plants called lichens, which is a combination, it's a combination plant, so we can chat about that later when we actually see. I'll show you an example of some. They're amazing, but they grow on rock faces, these lichens, and with the algae and the fungi inside there, and that's kind of the combination that there is. One is photosynthesizing and the other one's getting the nutrients, and they're getting the nutrients from those rock faces and any bit of moisture that might be on there. So, food. Anything out here is potential food for something else in various ways. So good question about the birds and do they eat them. I think we're going to, so just out of interest over here, this is where the buffalo was sleeping. Over here, I'll show you over here. Oh. So Chrissy has said 400 legs. Butterfly said 200 legs, and neither are correct, but Butterfly is closer, but I can't say how much closer. So this is where the buffalo were lying down over here, in this area over here. So I think we're gonna leave these buffalo moving off foraging, and Jandra and I, we're gonna carry on looking for those, heading down to the meerkats to see if we can find them. But in the meantime, just keep coming up with the number of legs for that millipede.
Surprise, surprise, I am at the Djuma clan hyena den, one of my favourite places to be. We have the cubs. Oh, Davi, what has he got? An antelope's horn. I actually think we're going to move forward just a little bit. I can see Ribbon, the matriarch, 2 cubs and 2 others. I'm not sure who they are yet because they're flat as pancakes, and I need to see their spot pattern to be able to identify them. Now, interestingly enough, the cubby's got something too, Davi. James actually sent me a message via the radio to say that the hyenas have dragged something towards the den. He found the drag marks. So clearly, I think maybe it looks like an impala from where I am right now, that I would imagine has been killed by a leopard. And the hyenas have got it and dragged it to the den. So I think what we're going to do is just roll forward a little bit here to get a better view. Maybe the rest of the carcass is just round the den. Now, for those of you who have been watching a long time, we actually have 3 dens in this area. And we call them Den 1, Den 2 and Den 3. Very original. And this is Den 3. So the hyenas have moved, but it's really, really not far from where they are originally. Good morning, guys. You look really full. What have you eaten? Now, this is Ribbon, flat and fat, on the ground. The matriarch, of course. And she's obviously chosen to move her cubs to this den, which is much smaller. It's still a termite mound, but it's much, much smaller than the other den. And the most likely reason for this is parasite load. The cubs were in the other den, the natal den, which then turned into a communal den for a very, very long time. And slowly but surely, parasites will build up. It will become very smelly and very dirty. So I think she'll keep them here for a little while, and I feel that she'll probably move them back to den number 2 at some point. Now, who do we have here? I'm going to need to... I don't see a carcass. I don't see any carcass at all, but they've obviously dragged it, which means there was a leopard in the vicinity. So I think that I think we're doing some home improvements over here. Now the cubs are getting so big. Davy and I found them on the 27th of March, and we think they were just days old. So that gives you a little bit of an indication on how old they are. And their spot patterns are coming right through. Now from the photos that some of you have sent me, I think one is definitely a boy. I have a gut feeling that they might both be boys, but I've not had a proper look at the other one's genitals. And hyenas can be very, very confusing. They're getting so big. Yep, I think that looks like an Impala horn over there. I think that's what they've got. I wonder which leopard killed the Impala, and the hyenas have obviously came and stole it. Now, hyenas have a terrible reputation for scavenging, but really, it's a very resourceful and clever way to survive. They don't need to risk their lives to hunt, spend all that energy, all that time executing a hunt. They can just steal. They know all the leopards in the area. They'll be able to identify them from scent, and they can steal from them. Can you hear the crunching? Can you hear the crunching of the horns? Hyenas can actually bite right through antelope horns. That's through bone and keratin. Rivka, very good question. Now, with hyenas, as bizarre as this sounds, the males have a penis and the females have a pseudo-penis. Now, I have a lovely image that I'm not able to show you right now, but they both look almost identical. They both look like penis, but the female's genital do not function the same as a penis. So they do urinate through it and they actually give birth through it, but it's not a male reproductive organ and they don't produce sperm. So originally, way back in the day, hyenas were thought to be hermaphrodites. And you can see why. It was very confusing. And I know this maybe doesn't sound so pleasant, but you see this sleepy one here? I haven't managed to identify it yet, Darby. The second one, you can actually see at the back, there's two fatty bulbous pads. Now, they do look like testicles, but actually females have fatty pads as well, and it's called a pseudoscrotum. So it's rather bizarre in the world of hyenas, but at the very, very end of the penis, or the pseudopenis, there's a tip, and the males will be triangular, and the females will not. And that is the main difference when you're looking at the genitals. Now, in terms of size, females will always be bigger. It's a matriarchal, female-dominated society, and it's quite unusual in mammals, but the females will be much bigger than the males in terms of size, much heavier and far more muscular. But when you're looking at the genitals, it's very, very confusing. And cubs at this age, it's really, really tricky to ID them and sex them. So I think we can only really make a guess at this stage, but I think I definitely saw one penis with the triangular tip, which means one of them's a boy. And I have a funny feeling it could both be boys, but I could be wrong. What do you have there? So I think we're going to stay here for a little while longer and enjoy this moment with the hyenas.
So there's a little black-backed jackal in the grass there. Early on as we drove past, it nearly looked like a stump. And so as we had another look, we saw the ears moving. See, it's just lifting up its head, smelling. Now this is an area where we often see a family of up to 5 jackal. Oh, it's moving off. Now, early on it was also doing that. So we first thought it was a stump, and then we saw it moving, and then from there on it moved in that direction. And I think what it might eventually do is head up in that, almost just straight up where it's heading off to now, to join up with the rest. But you see, very, very skittish this morning. And most of the animals, I mean, the Impala, the jackal, quite a few of them, they've been very wary of what's going on around them. And I mean, even in this area, there's barely any animals around. So I wonder if those lions haven't been moving through here, and now all the other animals are a little bit on edge. I'm just trying to look around while we're having a look at this jackal, see if there's any other animal here. Now you can see it's moving off. I think what the jackal might do from now on is it might just continue to move off in that direction. But I think while the jackal's doing that, let us carry on with our drive this morning. Oh, there he is, or she is. Just notice that very black, almost looks like a saddle on the back, hence the name black-backed jackal. Just love the way that they do move. And you'll see they're always, like as they move, they always just position their ears, quickly have a look around, make sure there's no danger, and then carry on from there. Okay, I think while that jackal moves off, I think let us slowly carry on with our drive. Maybe there's some, as we mentioned, maybe there's a chance we might find the lions near the riverbed. So we haven't seen too many tracks. We've only seen a track of one of the females that we're hoping to see this morning. So what we're going to do is carry on with our drive and then see what we can see.
So, the three adults, I still can't identify who the other two are. I've only managed to spot Ribbon, the one at the back. Unfortunately, I can't see at all. They're all snoozing. And I just spoke to James again, and it appears these hyenas scavenged what looks like the Impala all the way from another property. So talking of James, it appears that he has found you all a bird.
We have got a bird. This is, of course, a batelier, a junior batelier, with no black and red and white colouring. And he's all fluffed out because he's very cold here in the morning. And I stopped here, not so much because it was a batelier, because all of you have seen about 7 billion bateliers, but because I thought maybe he was scavenging something around this area, because I haven't seen one in this vicinity before. Well, not many times. And I thought maybe he had spotted something that had been murdered by one of the predators here. So far, that has not been the case. Interesting, I don't think he would have been attracted by what the hyenas dragged back to their den, because it would have happened during the night and he would have been fast asleep like most of us. But maybe something in the early morning attracted his attention to this area. Or maybe he's just setting up residence around here, waiting to grow up. Slowly starting to warm up now. I think it's going to be another glorious winter's low-felt day. We had one of those perfect days yesterday where the temperature got up to around 25 degrees Celsius, 75 Fahrenheit odd. No, Morgan, the young batalier's beak won't be soft at all. It will be like a knife. It'll be just as hard as the adult beak. And in fact, I suspect they harden almost immediately after they hatch from their eggs. In fact, they probably hatch with relatively hard beaks. Some birds. I know that I have attempted to raise wild birds caught by domestic cats before, and the little ones always have pretty hard beaks to start with. So, no, his beak is definitely very hard, but he's also, he's left the nest some time back, and he's been fending for himself, using that beak to feed himself for some time, so it's definitely very hard. It would be fairly useless if he had a floppy beak on the front of his face and tried to tear meat with it. Selina, I can't tell the age of this bird exactly, but I can tell you that it takes between 5 and 7 years for this bird to achieve its adult plumage. And its adult plumage is black and white and red. And as you can see there, this one is plain boring brown. And I'll just quickly check if I can see. Yeah, it's very difficult to say whether that bird is between sort of 1 and 5 years old. It only starts to change as they approach the adult plumage. So he'll molt into that exact sort of feather coloration for the first 5 years or so. Magnificent animal. Yvette, how many birds of prey are there in the area? Oh, you mean species of birds of prey? I'm going to assume you mean species. I don't know how many individuals there are. Oh, I'll quickly go through them for you. In the winter time, we've got obviously battaliers, tawny eagles, brown snake eagles. We've got 5 vulture species, so that's quite nice. Martial eagles, fish eagles, potentially crowned eagles, but highly unlikely in this area. We've got lizard, buzzard, dark chanting goshawk, gabar goshawk, black sparrowhawk potentially, little sparrowhawk, shikra, African goshawk, a Vambo sparrowhawk possibly. So quite a few. And then in summer there are a whole lot more after the migrating birds return. What have I left out? African harrier hawk, African hawk eagle. I think that's about it. Secretary bird. Some people consider the secretary bird a bird of prey. Marvellous. Let's move along.
Well, our hyenas are having the best time. I think they are not entirely aware that they're carnivores yet. They are, trying to eat all the vegetation around. But I'm very sure soon carnivores. But with hyenas, they're actually, they drink milk up until a very, very old age of 18 months, and it can actually go up to 2 years. That's a very, very long time for a young animal to suckle. And the reason for this is that the milk of a hyena is incredibly rich. It's one of the richest in the animal kingdom. And in terms of nutrients, it's richer than leopards and, oh, hello. The Michael Jackson backwards move. We have been here this whole time, yes. You just didn't pay attention to us. So the milk is richer than lions and leopards in terms of protein, fatty acids, calcium, and all the sort of macronutrients and minerals. And that's why they do drink milk for such a long time. But in that period, they will also eat meat. But it's important that they keep drinking the milk. So Ribbon here has got another, just under 1.5 years of these, this pair of twins to keep them nice and happy. And they will become more and more demanding as time goes on. Hyenas are actually born with their canines erupted. So you can imagine these little ones, when they're suckling, maybe, well, let's just say slightly painful at times. It's not easy for Ribbon. And she has lost cubs. She's lost quite a few cubs. So really, really hope that now she's the matriarch, she never used to be, that these cubs will thrive under her power. Now, Davy and I just did a nice little genital check, which I know sounds really bizarre, but I'm convinced one of them is definitely male. I need to see both of them. MGN, you're asking how long have hyenas been on the planet? I am really not sure about that. I'm not sure I can answer that question. How long have hyenas been on the planet? I really don't know. But there's actually hyena species that have gone extinct. They're very bizarre looking. You should Google them, actually. And they look they look similar to this, but they're much taller and larger. And the history of hyenas and how they have moved across the planet is very, very interesting. But now we only have 4 species in the Hyenidae family. And that's the spotted hyena, striped hyena, brown hyena, and the aardwolf. Of course, the spotted hyena, Crocuta crocuta, is the most common. But they belong in the family Hyenidae, which is part of the order Carnivora. They're actually, I think, morphologically and behaviourally, they're very similar to dogs. But actually, if you were to compare dogs and cats, they're more closely related in terms of taxonomy to cats than they are dogs. But their closest relative is the mongoose, believe it or not. But there's definitely species of hyena that have gone extinct, and it's fascinating. They used to be very sort of present in North America and even Europe. But the spotted hyenas are very, very successful as a species. Now, I'm going to stay here a little while longer. The longer we spend with these cubs, the more we can start to pick out their spot pattern and their sex, I guess. So while we sit and enjoy, we're going to send you over to Dylan and his favourite friends.
So these meerkats, the rock stars, have just come out, probably about 2 minutes ago at the most. So they're very, very wary, sitting up like this on the mounds. You see a lot of looking around, just to check what's going on. Remember, anything can arrive here during the course of the evening. There's something that could have been watching them yesterday afternoon, knowing, okay, they've gone down there. I'll quite happily make a turn here early in the morning, get up a position that I can maybe pounce on them from when they come out the burrow. So this vigilance first thing in the morning is critical to them. And, these predators, I mean, there's a clump of bush directly behind them there that can conceal African wildcat, caracal, leopard, anything. That's plenty of cover for a predator to stalk. This is the alpha female closest to us, eh? You can see the suckle marks on her chest over there. She may shuffle a little bit. You'll see that shade that's creeping on the right-hand side over there. She actually may move into a slightly more sunny position. The sun isn't fully on her, and she'll want that warmth. I'm just curious to see, when we were here 2 days ago, she went foraging before the rest of the group went out. So what we've done this morning is we're actually sitting even further away now. And I'm just really, really curious to see if there's any kind of difference in their behavior with us being a little bit further away, if she will actually wait for the others now, or if she'll actually go foraging. So we're just going to spend as much of the morning here as we can, and just to see which direction they go, and if the whole group goes out together, or if she leaves any more group members behind. So we're just going to spend a little bit of time here doing that.
So we just found this whole troop of vervet monkeys sitting up in the tree enjoying that sun. And you'll also notice that, of course, early part of the morning is a good time to groom, look out for any potential ticks, and get all of them off. You'll notice there's a few sitting there, but then just off to the right, oh, and do you see that one that's sitting with its belly right in the sun? So just slightly right of that. Just have a look at the way that this one is just sitting on that branch and enjoying that early morning sun.
Yeah, you can see that she's actually shuffled a little bit further over to her left, a tiny bit, so she's getting that sun on her properly now. And then the other, she's going to might even start digging a little bit. No. She's still in the shade now. But the others right at the back on the far left, they are now fully in the sun, and there's two, and a third one popping its head out. Marshall, just please repeat that question. I didn't get the question. Do meerkats do something? Oh. So the question was, do meerkats sweat? Do they perspire? Yes, they do. But what is really interesting is, like, a lot of these things, if you look at, and I had a very, very memorable incident once, many, many years ago. In fact, down in that Kruger area, we were tracking, and it relates to meerkats, we were tracking a leopard, and the tracks were so fresh. You know, cats, dogs, they actually perspire through their feet, the pads of their feet. So if you get a cat's a dog that's very, very hot, you'll actually see they're perspiring through their feet. And we were so hot on those tracks, you could actually see the damp prints on the stones of the leopard that had just passed that way. So meerkats would be the same as that. You know, they'd be able to perspire through their feet. And then also, in terms of thermoregulation, if it's exceptionally hot, they'll be panting. There's an anteating chat that's just arrived at this adult female that now it's just like hopping around these burrows, obviously hoping they're going to be doing some digging. I think it might move over to the group that Jandre's got there at the back there. There you go. There we go. Look at that. That was a lucky guess. So that bird's hopping around. You know, remember, that is the southern anteating chat. We've seen it a couple of times. And they nest underground. I still need to show you a good nesting site of one of these birds, and we will. These burrows, they can nest in these burrows, but it's a little bit difficult for them. They typically like larger burrow systems, like old aardvark burrows, porcupine burrows, and they nest in the roof. But what they'll be doing around here is they're hoping that these meerkats start foraging and doing burrow maintenance. They'll actually catch some little insects that get dug out. Jandre might hate me for this, but look at this shrike, look at the shrike. Whoa! There's this little bird that came flying across from right. It just buzzed straight over the top of the meerkats that Jandre was on there. And that's at common fiscal, the shrike that we were looking at yesterday, trying to catch some prey items. So I'm really happy the way this group is reacting this morning. They are so relaxed. And it could also be that they may have just been a little bit nervous yesterday from who knows what. But we're just going to spend some more time here and see what they do.
So sorry about that. Luckily we're back here with the vervet monkeys up in this beautiful tree. here at andBeyond and Ngala, but have a look at just how they're enjoying the sun. Wow. So basically this morning, myself and Owen, as soon as we hit like a nice pocket of warm sunlight, we basically sat like those vervet monkeys just to enjoy it a little bit before we carried on with our drive. Just have a look at the little one that's just off to the left of the screen. How it had that little itch. It just uses, of course, its hands, and it has very similar nails to what we have, and then it uses that just to scratch that itch. You can also notice that very long tail that just helps with balancing, especially when sitting on a small branch. You do need something just to keep you up, and you don't just fall off the branch. But what I wanted to mention earlier, so you'll notice with that big vantage point that they have over there, is if there was any predator around, you'll know that they are immediately spotted from that height, and then be able to almost give us an idea that there's something in the air. So often with vervet monkeys, they have this very distinct like call that they do, especially if there's any danger around. But you'll notice while those are up in the tree grooming themselves, there's a few that's come down onto the ground. However, like we won't go necessarily and focus on them now because they are moving in the grass and it's really hard to see. So we'll wait for them just to move up into a more open area, and then we'll try and do that. But they are just enjoying it. Look at that little one looking for possibly some ticks or maybe some parasites. See this other one? It's just almost looks like he's giving the other one a head massage, but basically just moving the hair so that it can possibly see if there's any ticks or maybe lice, anything that it can possibly just grab for some breakfast. But you can see, you can just see that one's enjoying it so much. Shaunas are normally, like vervet monkeys, there's quite a few predators. I mean, leopard could potentially go for them. There's a chance that if there's caracals around, baboons can even go for vervet monkeys. But then I think one of the most common predators for them would be eagles. So there's a big eagle here called the martial eagle, and I've quite a few times have seen these martial eagles. So Owen, from there on, you see they're just off to the right of the screen. Just straight, if you zoom in from there straight and just down to the right, you'll notice this one. Apparently there's another one just at the back. But so martial eagles, I know in some areas where you find a lot of crowned eagles. Crowned eagles could also go for vervet monkeys. Mainly eagles, any predator that would be agile enough to get to them. And I know leopard, I have seen before how they catch vervet monkeys, especially from the bigger cats.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties we had a bit earlier, but welcome back to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Clive, and behind the camera we have Marcel. And third time lucky for us, actually. Early this morning, we found a male lion, but as soon as we found him, he disappeared up into the mountains. And then we had a very, very long distance view of another lioness earlier. But then she lay down in the long grass and we couldn't see her. But finally we found the rest of all the same pride. They're just very split up. Finally we found the rest of the pride. So these are actually 5 little young lions that I think must have been left by the 2 lionesses, their mothers. And they must have gone off hunting, leaving the youngsters here. And I wonder where the 2 lionesses could be. They really could be anywhere around here. But it'll be really interesting. I think we're probably not going to go anywhere else for a while, because it'll be really interesting to see what happens if and when they come back. You know, if the mothers have been out hunting and they have managed to catch something, it'll be very interesting to see if they come back and they lead the cubs back away to the kill. This is so amazing though. There's actually, we can only see about 3 or so of them, but there's actually 5 around here. You can see that in a bit of a playful mood. They're biting each other. Just now they were chasing as well, so we're just going to spend a bit of time here and watch their behavior. But remember, please send any questions through. It'd be great to hear some of your questions. It's amazing how now in winter, how the grass has gone to this beautiful brown color and how well these lions just blend into it. Excuse me. So both of those ones that you can see now are both little young males. If we do get a proper look, have a look just behind their neck, behind their head, and on top of their head as well. And you might see a little bit of extra fluff starting to grow. You'll see there's almost like a little mohawk of hair on this one. Oh, and there he goes down. Well, while we sit with these lions, we're going to send you across to Lauren with those hyena cubs being very playful.
Well done for finding your lions. Now, my little cubbies here are starting to settle. And once the milk bar is open and they start suckling, normally they fall asleep. They're still small, they're still young. And once their tummies are full of that delicious milk, they normally fall asleep. Now, it was Ntima that was here. She sadly got up and left. She's probably snoozing not too far away. But Ntima is also Ribbon's daughter, Ribbon's oldest daughter, who was 3 years old in February. And they have a very, very close bond. You can see that they're very relaxed with one another, and Ribbon really, really trusts Ntima. Still not sure who the third one is. I have a funny feeling it's either Sutu or Inzabelli, but I actually can't see from here. We had a male turn up, and I think it was Falco, a male that we don't really, well, I don't often see around here. So the males are very much visiting the den. They're not entirely welcome. He scent marked a little, and then he disappeared. But Ribbon wasn't hugely happy with his presence. And scent marking in hyenas is a whole different ball game than it is in the cats. Now, your leopards and lions, they will scoosh urine. That's the most common way of scent marking, from a sort of little pouch where they store marking fluid. And they'll store it, and whenever they sort of go on territorial patrol, they'll scoosh it on the vegetation. Now, for hyenas, they really only sort of mark their territory when there's a den, a communal den. And this is very much a communal den now. And they do it by anal pasting. Yes, it sounds very bizarre. And they actually sort of, I'm not entirely sure how to explain this, but turn their anus inside out and paste a fluid It's whitish, it's very smelly, onto the vegetation. And in order to do this, they have to squat. So it's completely different from the cats. And the little cubs have been trying to do it as well. Now, there's no way they can be marking territory at this age. So they're obviously just copying what the adults do. There'll be some sort of instinct in there as well. And they see the adults do it, and therefore they are also doing it, which is very sweet. Roaming wild, I'm really not sure. I don't think that's been proven for hyenas. Do they provide different milk content, whether it's a male or female? I would imagine not, but I'm really not sure about that question. There's a really interesting study done on lions, and it actually shows that the sort of composition of the milk differs for each nipple. So the one lioness produces milk, but when they sort of extracted it from her, they had different compositions of the milk from each nipple. And what that means is it wasn't the same with regards to fatty acid content, protein content, and calcium content, and all other forms of nutrition. But as where they produce different milk content, to whether it's a male or a female, I'm really not sure. My guess would be no. But that's literally just a guess, I'm not sure. Their milk is said to be one of the strongest in the entire animal kingdom, or at least mammal kingdom, should we say. And that's what gets hyenas through the sort of tough years of being a cub. And you have to remember that they eat a lot of carrion, rotten meat. Oh, another one on the scene. Who's this? Is this Santima coming back? Oh, this is very much a communal den now, and the cubbies they've got their little tails up. That's a sign of dominance. I'm not sure who that was, everyone. Shakita, you're asking why do they mark their territories? They mark it as a clan. So it's a communal den for the clan now. And what that means, a natal den is normally it doesn't have to be a termite mound, but it's normally an area where the mother stashes the cubs, just to let them get a little bit bigger and a little bit older, so that they're then strong enough to be introduced to other members of the clan. Now, other members of the clan would not necessarily harm the cubs, but of course it could be accidental because they're much bigger and stronger. So once it becomes a communal den, it just means that everybody's welcome, all members of the clan. And they mark it, of course, because it's their territory, just the same as a lion or leopard would mark their own territory. It belongs to the clan. Now, there's neighbouring clans here, especially the Elephant Plains clan, which these hyenas would definitely battle with, and therefore that's why they mark it. So all members of this clan, the Djuma clan is very, very small, are welcome at this den, as long as they show respect, I guess, to Ribbon. They must act submissive to the matriarch here, who never used to be the matriarch. Got a little bit of battle striving for dominance here. They both want the dominant nipple. How fascinating. So as we watch, we are going to send you across to Dylan at Tswalu Kalahari with his meerkats.
This little matriarch is now getting some proper sun on her, and she is totally relaxed. Which was just interesting. I don't want to say their vigilance has dropped a little bit. It hasn't. I mean, they're as vigilant, but they're not looking around as nervously as when they'd first come out the burrow. So they're obviously kind of like settling down now. They're like, okay, cool. Nothing obvious has jumped out at them. Just out of interest, there was a black-chested snake eagle, that did a flyby in the far, 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 far distance down in a valley bottom that we saw earlier. They didn't actually see it. It was behind the bushes for them. And it's also unlikely that that species, black-chested snake eagle, would actually go for these meerkats, unless it had a really good opportunity of one sitting out completely in the open. But I mean, they are snake specialists. But it was just interesting to note that that bird of prey is in the area. JT has just asked, are meerkats constantly rearranging and digging their burrows? And yes, while they're at those burrows, JT, that maintenance process is critically important for their survival. You know, as super small little animals, you know, in terms of predator avoidance, these burrow systems are their absolute lifeline. There is no question. Yes, sure, they can duck into a bush, you know, if they need to. But we've got birds of prey as an example, and called pale chanting goshawks. And where our colleagues are working, they've got the sister species to that called a dark chanting goshawk. And these birds are fantastic generalist raptors. And they will even pursue prey on the ground. And they will, if something runs inside a clump of bush, they will actually walk around on the ground trying to ferret it out. There's other birds down there called African hawk eagles that will do the same. So for these meerkats, to duck inside a bush would be like a second prize to avoid a predator. Normally they would try and get underground. So that burrow maintenance is exceptionally important for them. And then also, obviously, for thermoregulation, they need to maintain these burrows so they can have good access to them. And when they're out foraging away from their main burrows like this, they'll have a number of bolt holes. And they will, and as the name implies, that is literally the default. If danger threatens, they'll know exactly where those bolt holes are, and they will run straight for them and bolt down them. So they will also do maintenance on these outlying bolt holes away from the main burrow system. We're just going to spend a little bit more time, and I really want to see which way they go foraging.
Welcome back again. So we've been sitting with these lions now for a little while longer, and they are definitely settling down. I think there was a bit of playing earlier, but it seems like now the more important thing is to get some rest. So it's just that one now that we can see out in the open, and there's one or two more just past him. And then one lying off to the left, one lying off to the right. But he's the only one we can actually see out in the open here. So if you've just joined us, we were talking about how these are 5 young lions, and that the 2 lionesses, which will be the mothers of these youngsters, must be out hunting. So they've left these youngsters in one spot and they've gone off hunting. So it will be very interesting to see if they do come back. And if they do, it'll be interesting to see whether they have caught something or not. And we'll start leading these youngsters off to the kill. But we've had 3 of us driving around these big open grasslands that we're in at the moment. And no sign of the 2 adults. So they could be anywhere. Morning, Colleen. You're asking how many prides of lions are in this area. These lions are part of one pride that we call the Ngala Pride. And then there's, other than this pride, there are another 2 prides on the whole reserve. But in the areas where we drive now for these live safaris, there's 2 different prides that we can see. The other one is right up far in the north of the reserve. I hope that answers your question. So overall there's 3 prides, but we only in the area where we could see 2 prides. Morning, Brianna. So this little young male is about a year. He's just less than a year and a half old, about a year and 3 months or so. And as I was saying, he's getting a little bit of extra fluff behind his neck, a little bit of a kind of a Mohican going on the top of his head. But it's only by the time, obviously it slowly starts growing more and more from now, but it's only by the time he's about 5 years old that it's a really full, big mane. Even when he's 4, though, it'll be quite a big, full mane. So he's still got a lot of growing to do, a few years to have a big, full mane, but it'll come. Now, what's quite interesting is that there's 5 here, 3 of them being males, it looks like, and 2 females. So those 3 males now are actually going to spend the rest of their lives together. They will, when they're in the region of about 2.5 or 3 years old, they're going to be pushed away from this pride, and they will actually stay together for the rest of their lives. And you can imagine to hold so to be sorry about that the little glitch. We are out in the African bush here, so signal's not always perfect. But yeah, they will have their own territory and their own females, but it's still going to take them a good few years to grow up. For now, they're still very reliant on their mothers going off hunting for them. It's been such a beautiful morning out here. It started out quite chilly in the morning, but the sun is up now and it's really warming up nicely. And this area that we're in can often be very windy because it's very open. And it's a little bit windy this morning, but not too bad. As you can see, the lions are really enjoying warming up in the sun. Morning, Gail. That's a very interesting question, actually. So, if there was only one male in a litter, which happens quite regularly, if there was only that one male, he would either have to take over a territory by himself, which obviously would require him to be very strong, but it's not easy for a single male lion, or, as you say, he would try and join another coalition. And I have actually seen that before, and they can join other coalitions, but not without a bit of fighting in the beginning. The only time I've seen it, there were 2 young males from one pride and 1 young male from another pride, around about the same age. The single one was a little bit older, and we saw them for a few kind of close to each other, but not right together. So the 2 would stick together and the other one would stick together, but a good 20 or 30 meters in between them. But eventually, over the next month or so, they just seemed to join together, and then we eventually saw them actually feeding all together on a wildebeest kill. So it definitely can happen, but I also don't think it's easy for a single male lion. It's amazing. The only movement that he's got going on is just that little flicker of an ear every now and then. I see off on our left, probably about 300 meters away, there's some warthogs It would be very interesting to see if one of these lions did spot them, because they're obviously quite young. They're not, definitely not very good at hunting. I'm sure they haven't even caught anything for themselves yet before. But it would be very interesting to see what would happen if they did spot these warthogs. I wonder if they would kind of listen, because their mothers, before, when they went off hunting, would have kind of given them the signal to stay put in this area. But, you know, young kids, they might feel a bit adventurous and wander off down into the valley there and start chasing those warthogs. It would be really interesting to see anyway. But somehow I think to be able to spot something, you might need to have your eyes open, and it doesn't look like any of these lions have their eyes open at the moment. Keep dreaming. You're asking if these lions would be able to survive if something happened to their mothers. Oh, it would be very hard to say. As I say, they're just over between a year and a half old. They haven't required the necessary skills yet to be able to hunt by themselves. So I don't think so, no. They would only, by the time they're about 2.5 years old, leave the pride, and that's kind of when they've required enough skills to be able to hunt by themselves. They might get lucky every now and then, but I don't think it would be enough to survive. Having said that, though, two cheetah here, two brothers that were about 8 months old, or 9 months old maybe, if I remember right, that to go off by itself. And see them every now and then, so they've done very well. We are going to send us to Dylan. A little technical issue sorted out here.
So I reckon these meerkats are very close to going foraging now. The little alpha female, that's the one that's just scratching herself there now. I think she got fleas from Genre, has moved across to that position from where she was sitting earlier. She's moving closer to where the others are, and there's like a lot of looking around, and I've got a feeling it's probably going to be within the next 10 minutes they're actually going to head out foraging. Interestingly, there is one quite nervous meerkat in this group, so that could be one that's moved in over the past couple of weeks that's not very habituated, and he actually went and tucked himself. There's more burrows to the left of as we're viewing this alpha female to the left hand side of the screen, or in other words on her right, and he actually tucked himself into the burrows, and every now and again he kind of like watches us and then just carries on doing his digging and that. There she's looking towards where he is now. He's out of sight of us, we can't see him at the moment, but we know he's in there. And as we were saying the other day I think we were here 2 days ago, you know, because she's suckling, she really needs to keep her energy levels up. Or she's not suckling, the youngsters are suckling on her, so she's lactating. So she really needs to keep her energy levels up and get enough food in order to do that. So, and today's absolutely gorgeous winter conditions out here. It's very mild. There's a extremely gentle breeze around, so the conditions are perfect for them to be out. They came out at about, I think it was about 7:30. They first made their appearance, literally 2 minutes before we got you. And I don't think there's going to be much time wasted on sunning themselves on the burrow. They're going to be out foraging very soon. Chandra, I don't know if you're able to pan across that one on the left-hand side. They're just tucked in the bush over there. That one is super cute. That's a little one that was a little bit nervous earlier. Biolooms asked a fun question there. How do meerkats stand for so long? And pretty much the answer to that is, I know it's going to sound dead simple, but that's just what they do. That's just what they're used to. It's like us walking around and standing up for 3, 4, 5 hours a day, or going for a long walk. It's just, we do that. Their design of their bodies enables them to do that. It makes it easier. You'll notice they use their tail lying down or placed down on the sand. So it's almost like it creates a tripod effect, and that enables them to balance. And you'll see sometimes that they're not just balancing on their hind legs, but sometimes they're actually slightly leaning on the tail like it. So it really does help them. But I think it's, I don't think it's difficult for them. It's probably, like, say, as simple as saying, well, how does a person stand on their hind legs? We can go into the physical dynamics of it. Bone structure, muscles, cartilage, core strength, that kind of thing. And I would guess these meerkats have probably got some good core strength. They're digging all the time. They've got good posture. Yeah, but they are sweet little... I know I've said that so many times before, but they are adorable little animals. So there's at least 5 out here now. Not all visible in frame over here. There's some off to our left. There's at least 3. There's actually 6. There's actually 6 that are out now. There's 3 from the one that's on the edge of the bush, and there's another 3 standing. 3 standing out in the open there. I haven't seen much burrow maintenance going on, but the fact that they've had the pups at this den site now, at this burrow site, they would have been doing intensive burrow maintenance over the past couple of days on it already. So you probably find these burrows are really, really at a good point, so that there's probably not a huge amount of need for intensive burrow maintenance every morning at the moment. That's already been done. We're just going to sit here until they move off. And let's see what happens.
So we haven't had too many signs of these lions yet. There were a few tracks that Eric and Yapi found, so they're currently following them, and we're going to give them a hand. And it's just a little beautiful small pan in front of us, and often quite a few little treats that we can find there, especially some good birds. Oh, you know what? Talking about a good bird, I'm just going to move like this. It's actually one that we're seeing now, so I think you might have seen some the other day. But look right over here. So there's a beautiful bird. Oh, don't go. You might just move forward and then land again. There we go. So that's if you look at the different colors, so see the white on the back of the neck, a bit of black around the neck, and that beautiful red and black bill. It's called the saddle-billed stork. You might even hear there's some baboons in the background. And it is like, look at the different colors, and also just showing off now, just fluffing up its feathers. There's another one that's going to probably land right next to the other one. Here we go. Oh. Here we go. So let's see if we can see which one is the male and which one is the female. So how we normally do that is, so the males, they have this wattle, or these yellow wattles just under the chin, and the females don't have that. So you'll see the one closest to us. We're going to Just listen to those baboons. I wonder if one has been very naughty within the troop and now everyone has just been put back in their place. But so look how interesting behavior that is. See the male, how he's picking up that little bit of grass and then flicking it up in the air. It's almost like he's trying to show off to the female. Now, I've never seen this type of behavior, but let's just spend some time with him. It's very interesting to see. I wonder if he's not just trying to grab her attention, show her like how quick he is, maybe like that he's possibly a good hunter. Just maybe just showing off to try and impress her. So if you look under his chin, remember we talked about the yellow wattles? You can see the wattles just under the chin with the female. There. Janet, it could possibly be a mating dance. I'm not too sure. Like, to be honest, I've yet to spend a lot of time with him and see a behavior like that. I think that's my first time in my life I've actually seen that one picking up the little bit of grass and flinging it to the side. So it'd be interesting. Let's spend some time here and actually see what happens from that. Because I often feel the best way to interpret the behavior is actually just to sit and watch it. So as we are watching them to see if they're going to do anything else. Oh, and do you see? Right in front of me is a big tree, like off to the right. Mm-hmm. So the baboons are all in that tree, just in front of us. We'll just quickly show they are pretty far off, but I would like to come back to these saddleboard stalks and see if that male picks up a bit of grass again and flicks it to the side, and also to see how the female is going to respond. But have a look. You'll see all the baboons. Like those vervet monkeys on the tree, there might be a little bit of fruit or something that they've picked, or flowers or anything that they might be eating. And this time of the year, you don't really find a lot of the trees with fruit on it, but you can see it does look like they might be picking something at the moment. And it's hard to see, especially what tree it is. It does look like from this distance it could be a jackalberry tree. And that those baboons might be picking some of the fruits from that tree. Dylan, that's a very good question. I think I'll definitely try and see if I can find a little bit more about it, but I think if I had to define it, I think a beak is more of a curved structure. So often with beaks they use it either to crack seeds, or it has to be very strong and it can't be too long, because then of course it does lose a lot of the strength towards the end. Where with a bill is, of course, it's designed either to spear a fish or to grab a fish and then of course from there on tenderize it. So the bill would be a lot longer. Instead of a beak which is short and compact in order to crush something, the bill is more longer to be able to use that as a specific tool in order to catch something. So I would say that will probably be the two differences between them. And often, I mean, like, look at this saddlebird stalk. So I've heard one of the things that has been recorded is they've been able to catch fish that weighs up to nearly 1.5 kilograms. So I think it's a pretty big bird fish in order to swallow. So the beak really just acts as a tool in order to dart it, and then from there tenderize it, break it up as much as it possibly can and soften it. Especially if it's catfish, they'll often break the spines off so that they're able to swallow it. I think for now we're going to leave them be. I think we'll eventually come back later and see if We can pick up a little bit on where we left them with their behavior and see if we can find any other tracks or signs of those lions. But I think while we do that, let's head across to Lauren.
From hyenas to their close relatives, we have a little business of dwarf mongoose here. Now, it would it would not surprise me if they are just waking up. The one thing I love about dwarf mongoose, I would probably call them my spirit animal, they don't like mornings. They take a long time to wake up. They wait until...
Anyone brought up with Ngala this morning?
I'm just going to turn that down. They wait until the sun is fully up and you start to feel the warmth from it, and then they start to pop their heads out. And they are the smallest carnivore in the low veld. So they're part of the larger mongoose grouping. We also get white-tailed mongoose here. Sometimes we get banded, and we get mares and slender mongoose, but these are the dwarf mongoose. They're very, very small. They only weigh about 300 grams. But they are ferocious carnivores. They'll even take on centipedes, scorpions, reptiles. As you can see, they're all starting to pop out now. They're very, very social, and the whole family will live in there. There'll be lots of them inside. And just like wild dogs, actually, they'll have an alpha pair, an alpha female and an alpha male. So they won't all breed. The rest of the individuals will support the alpha pair's breeding efforts. And you can hear them. They make a noise similar to this. No, that was me. Just in case you were confused there, it was not the mongoose. But they are looking at me. Now, they've got very sharp teeth. A bite from a dwarf mongoose would be really painful. But just before I forget, something bizarre happened. All the hyenas at the den heard something, and they ran. They ran so fast, 4 of them. Ribbon stayed with the cubs. The cubs have gone back inside. Something scared them. They all ran in this direction really, really fast. So we've had a little look around to see if we can see or hear or smell what possibly caught their attention. But so far, no luck. We're going to look now, because all we have at the den is sleepy ribbon. But we saw these dwarf mongoose on the way. And Nushka, you're asking how big can the sort of business of mongoose get? I think it can get relatively large. I believe on average it's between 12 and 20. But I think businesses, which sounds a bit random, have been known to go up to 30 individuals. But I think the average is anywhere between 12 and 20. And this is because they are social, they are cooperative, they need one another. They're not solitary. They rely on each other. And although we found this business in this very small termite mound, they actually have a network of termite mounds in their territories. Their territories are about 1 kilometre squared. And they'll have a network of mounds that they scent mark and they know sort of belong to them, i.e. there's no hyenas or surprises inside. And they run to the nearest one as soon as the sun is setting at night. So they don't necessarily choose their home for the night. It's once that sun starts to go down, they think, oh, we better hide, we're in trouble. And they run to the nearest mound that is in their network, within their territory. Good morning. Okay, as much as I don't want to leave these cuties, I want to investigate where these hyenas went. So as we begin our search, we're going to send you across to Dylan, who I believe is looking at the ground.
So the little meerkats are still sitting behind us here. That's an individual that I think may actually stay behind as a babysitter while the others go out. But while we're sitting here, we actually seen these really cool porcupine foraging holes. And how we know it's porcupine? Here I'm leopard crawling on a porcupine hole. Okay, number one, there's porcupine droppings here. Okay. Hey. There we go, porcupine droppings. And I was asked a very, very good question about that the other day. It's like, if they're gnawing, this is an awesome question. If they're gnawing bones, okay, osteophagy for quill growth, teeth and that, they're obviously ingesting calcium. Why aren't the droppings white like hyenas? And I think, and I'm speculating, and anyone is welcome to offer their views if they want. I think that the amount that they're ingesting is really converted into teeth growth, being rodents here, then sizes grow very, very quickly, as well as quill production. So, and I'm guessing that you probably find there's not that much calcium that gets passed out in the droppings. That's my gut feel. I'm not sure. But over here on this hole, you can see this is where they've been digging inside over here. Obviously, for some roots, there are remnants of roots. There we go, with actually nice chew marks on them. Look there. So that's what this little guy was after. I'm actually not sure what. Oh, this is a species called cucumis. This is a part of a gemsbok, well, the root of a gemsbok cucumber. This is what they love. And mole rats also adore these things. They dream about these. Roots. And then over here, the other reason why we know it's a porcupine burrow is, look at the quill marks. So these little striations on the sand over here, those are the quill marks as the porcupine came into this, facing down in this direction and digging out. His quills on his tail left these marks, and then urine. You got a nice little patch of porcupine urine over here, and this is a very, very typical example of a porcupine foraging hole. And then over here, a lovely set of porcupine tracks. And look how nice and clear these tracks are. This is the hind foot over here, and there's a front foot over there. But you can see the size of them. They're not that big. Those of you, and we will keep our eyes open for further honey badger signs. But in terms of the size, honey badger tracks are much larger. And also the gait. These are very, very narrowly spaced. You know, from the different tracks. You can there, here. Whereas a honey badger's got a much longer thing. I mean, a lot of people say, well, yeah, how do you know the difference between honey badger and porcupines? They're very, very similar. Yeah, they are similar if you don't know what those tracks look like. But this is everything here just like screams porcupine. So this is just a nice example. We must actually look around. Hopefully we'll find some quills for you. But as we're going, again, we were looking at it the other day, and I must still get my butt in gear. And what I'm going to do is we're going to start doing these, what we will call, just for absolute fun, we're going to call them 1 square meter. Okay, that's going to be, we're going to do that maybe once a day, or maybe once every second day. We'll see how it goes, and it'll be quite a fun exercise. And what we'll do is we'll take 1 square meter. We might even make it a bit smaller. Let's have a look, and then we'll see how many different things we can find, even if we can't name them. Okay, we can just keep a list. Okay, 1, 2, 3. See how many different things of interest we can find within that space. And obviously, some of it's going to be slightly more challenging. Here we've got a bare patch of sand. But if you really want to look super closely, we can say, okay, there is a dropping. So, Jean, I know these are tiny. That is a dropping from a armored ground cricket. Okay, it's 1. Here is a seed from sourgrass. That's 2. That is an antelope dropping of sorts. I can't even see it, so mangled and covered with sand. That's 3. You've got porcupine droppings. That's 4. We have let's see what else we got here. That's 4. Okay, well, then you got the sand itself. That's 5. That in itself is interesting. But, you can actually just keep on going in definitely like this. So I think that going forward, that's going to be a really exciting and a really, really fun thing to do. And it's going to open our eyes just to the sheer biodiversity that's in these areas.
Here we have got the adult version of the junior bateleur we saw earlier. Now I know that we've seen these birds often, and one of the reasons that I said that the junior was possibly looking at something dead was that apparently these chaps are very territorial, and these guys tend to spend their time in exactly the same position. And I suspect very strongly that the junior that we saw is the offspring of the pair that lives in this area. And you may have been able to hear the call of another one, which I think is just down the way here. Give me a second, let me drive forward. Sitting on a twee, maybe even in the nest. Yes, there it is. Like, this looks like a junior one as well. Could easily be the same bird we saw this morning. It is. You see it there, BK? On the top of the tree there? Or was the bush in the way? There we are. That's the one. Yeah, there we are. Miss KJ, we think the lifespan of a bateleur is roughly 40 years or so. So they are long-lived. But remember, as with so many of the animals out here, it's very difficult to say what the lifespan is in the wild, because clearly you've got to follow a representative sample number of animals from birth until death, unless there's some obvious other way of aging them, which there isn't in the case of the bateleur. Once it turns 7, it's got its adult plumage, and you won't know how old it is between the ages of 8 and 39, where it falls off its perch. So we think around about 40 years. A lot of the estimates of wild animal longevity are just that, estimates, because very few have been followed, especially the long-lived ones. Very few have been followed from birth until they shuffle off this mortal coil, or in the case of the bateleur, fall off its perch. This one is a long, long time from falling off its perch. Right, apparently Dylan has some visitors.
I'm not going to move, but I was lying here doing this like little thing with how many things we can find in this small area. And apparently this meerkat has walked up to me. I can't see it, but I'm not going to turn around either. Okay, it's moving away. That's moving. Yeah, apparently she walked like right up to my foot. It's obviously like kind of like trying to see if my shoes meet her approval. I hope they do. Yes, this is gorgeous. So this is the alpha female there. Hey, this is absolutely fantastic. What an amazing experience to be able to sit here with these animals, or lie here. Well, I got that timing wrong. Oh no, don't worry. They're gonna move off in 10 minutes. Well, yeah, clearly not. Trust me, I'm an expert. I never get it wrong. So while we're here, just out of interest, we've got at least, and this is this bare patch of sand over here, the bare patch of sand. We've got at least, the sand, an antelope dropping. I don't know who it is, maybe I think a springbuck. There's a seed of an Indigofera, I think, almond ground cricket droppings, grass seed, porcupine droppings, meerkat droppings. So there's at least, blue half, okay, there's at least 7 items. That's just in this tiny, tiny, tiny area right here. And no doubt if you had to bring a very fine sieve or something, you would actually start seeing even more things. And like I said, this is on what appears to be a bare patch. Bioloom has asked, are meerkats rodents? No, they're not rodents. They're not rodents at all. They're actually related to meerkats, Herpestidae. Yeah, so the rodent, the mongoose family are not rodents, the whole lot of them. There are some anomalies as well in it. We've got a wonderful little animal here. Only comes out late at night. In fact, in my entire time working in the outdoors, I've only seen them once in daylight hours, called a spring hare. And, you know, hares are not rodents either. But the name is misleading because spring hares are rodents. So common names become like quite challenging to get your head around. You know, they can be very, very misleading in many respects. But we're just going to sit here and I'm going to carry on counting stuff and watching meerkats.
WildEarth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the WildEarth family.
We are at Treehouse Dam, and I think James showed you earlier a battalier, an adult. So what we have here is not quite a juvenile, but it's in between phase. So it's still a battalier, and immediately you can tell from that band of feathers along the bottom. Now, battaliers are very, very easy to see in flight, but I'm just going to show you the different stages that you get of a battalier's development. So Davy, if you just want to take a look here, this is my bird app. You can see we've got female with that additional band along the bottom, male where that band is completely absent, and then you have the immature phase where it's brown, there's no band, and it's very, very fluffy. Now what we have here is not quite a fully fledged adult. They take between 7 to 8 years to reach adulthood. This is a sort of in-between phase, not quite immature, not completely young, but not yet an adult. Now there's an adult flying around as well, and there's also a younger one. There's quite a few battaliers in this area. And we can just take a look at how fluffy he is. I don't know if fluffy is the right word when you're talking about feathers. But the feathers are all ruffled. They don't look very smooth, and that's a giveaway. I often find juvenile or immature battaliers quite difficult to identify from a distance. It's not sort of until you're able to get a really, really close look that you can see that it's a battalier. So you see the coloration on the face? Don't have that red face or red beak, and that's how you know it's not fully an adult yet. Oh, it's a chilly morning. And earlier I think we were talking about, do animals feel the cold? And yes, they absolutely do. So I imagine the birds will just be trying to warm up in the morning sun, and the battalier will soon get ready to take flight. Now, I still want to investigate where or why all those hyenas ran off. They'd had a meal. There's an Impala carcass there. So something really caught their attention. I just can't figure out where they went. Hyenas can run surprisingly fast when they want to. They have a sort of slow gallop because of their unique body shape, but when they really want to run, they can go very, very fast. And I think we're going to head to the southern boundary just to see if there's anything exciting going on in the world of hyenas. Now, although you can't see this battalier's tail, they have a very, very short tail. It almost looks slightly bizarre because their wings are so long and their tail is so short. but it's to do with aerodynamics. And they've evolved this way to fit a unique specialised niche against other competitors, such as other birds of prey and vultures. It allows them to fly so low to the ground that they're able to swoop in, grab some food before the others. Rava, you're asking why do the battle ears' faces change in colour? So it's just development into adulthood. So the sort of red coloration that you see and that panel on the wings of the grey feathers is their adult coloration and plumage. So normally in a lot of birds, especially birds of prey, the juveniles can look slightly different. And this is normally to protect them as well, a sort of form of camouflage and disguise within birds. So with the battle ears, like I showed you, the juvenile phase is very brown and fluffy. They almost look like a tawny eagle from a distance. But of course, once you look at them up close, you realise it's a juvenile battle ear. And after 2 or 3 years, they start to change. You'll see the plumage change. And then once they reach their full adult years of around 7 to 8 years old, you will find that they then get that red face. Oh, we have a tiny little jumping spider here, Davi. Shall we try and see? Oh, it's very sweet. Okay, I'm going to try and move out the way. Here, it's very small. Give Davi a bit of a challenge for the morning. It's a little jumping spider. It looks like a crab. Crabs and spiders are both arthropods. But I think this is a very, very young jumping spider. How sweet. Now, I'm not sure if it'll jump away, but I'm going to try and put my finger close by so you can see. Oh, no, that's going to create a shadow. That's my shadow. You can see how small the spider is. That's my finger. Now, we're not seeing as many spiders anymore, and I have to say I do miss my golden orb web spiders. Absolutely magnificent. You just see them glinting, or their webs glinting in the sun as you're driving through the bush. But we have still got some spiders around, and this is definitely a jumping spider of sorts. Cute. Hopefully it will join us for the rest of the journey. Now, the battle ears flew off, so I think that means we are going to continue on to the southern boundary to see if we can find out what caused these hyenas to run. Now, they all put their tail up, and when a hyena erects its tail and it sort of curves back around the body, that's not only a sign of dominance, but it's a sign of being ready for battle. So something was happening. But Ribbon didn't leave, which I find interesting. Ribbon's the matriarch. She's the one that will be in charge and call the shots. She decided to stay with her big full belly. That's the others that decided to run. Okay, southern boundary, here we go. Okay, so hopefully we'll find something exciting down in the south, but for now, you guys are going back across to Dylan with his meerkats.
So finally I got it right. I knew if we waited long enough I would be right at some point. So they've actually moved off foraging now. They're in the grass, so the view's not great, but there's one still sitting up over there, and the others have just moved further out to the right-hand side. And there is a babysitter that has been left behind. It's down the burrows now. We'll see just now if we can see it. But it's just nice to see how these animals actually move out foraging. It's not this mad dash away from the burrows. They'll go out cautiously. You'll always have normally at least one on sentry duty, sometimes more. And that's also very dependent on the group size. You know, if it was a group of 10, 12, 15 meerkats going out foraging, obviously you'll have more than one on sentry duty. If you've got 2 or 3 individuals that are heading out, it'll normally be one that'll be on sentry duty. And any one of the meerkats will be giving alarm calls if necessary. I mean, it doesn't mean the sentry is the only one. The sentry could actually be perched up on a bush, because they'll actually climb up small bushes and trees to get a better view of the landscape. But a sentry that's watching like that could well miss something like a puff adder. Remember, we've been seeing puff adders over the past couple of weeks. They'll tuck under these bushes, and that could be a foraging meerkat that actually finds danger like that, rather than the actual sentry sitting out. But the moment those alarm calls get given, and there's different kinds of alarm calls, that'll put that entire group on high alert, or if it's an immediate threat, send them underground down a bolt hole. So we're just going to carry on spending more time here and watching these meerkats move off foraging.
We're in the process of observing something that makes me yet again grateful for my agenda, because there is a kudu cow just to the right of your picture. There she is, and she is being set upon by a calf who is trying to suckle. Now, the process is not a gentle one. In fact, the poor cow is being head-butted in the udder by her youngster. Now, I'm sure that this has some sort of biological function, but it looks very uncomfortable. Let's just see if we can get a look at them again. We sat and watched them for ages, and then naturally, as we came live, they decided, well, they'd had enough. No, they've run away. Let me just go around the corner here. Absolutely fascinating to watch. I just went in here. There's the calf. I think they're going to go into the thick bush. No, there we go. There they are, BK. We'll just see them going into the thick bush. There's the hungry calf. Now, let's see if she does it again. Or he. At this stage, I can't tell. Oh, there are quite a few of them. A quadruple butt shot is what we had there. Now we're on to the leaves. I believe you were chatting earlier about different kinds of milk and whether or not there are differences. I don't know in what context you were talking about it, but whether or not there are differences between the milk fed to males and females. I don't think so. I think it's all the same stuff. Of course, there are hormones in the milk, which must have an effect on the youngster's physiology. But I don't think a mother produces different milk depending on the gender of her offspring. And I suppose in many cases it's because, in a litter you could have both. Now, Merlin, is very unusual for cross-suckling to occur in the mammal kingdom. It happens in lions. It does not happen in animals like hyenas. It would not happen with kudu, we don't think. You'd probably find it in elephants. Otherwise, it's almost exclusive to the mother. Primates sometimes. Not all primates, though. And it's quite interesting. I suppose you'd expect to find it in animals that live in related social groups. So lions and elephants are a great example, where you have closely related females living in the same group and they'll look after each other's youngsters. That has from an evolutionary perspective, a lot of sense to it, because, of course, they're looking after their own genes by looking after cousins and nieces and nephews and that sort of thing. But in some species, in groups of, say, Impala, where you're not necessarily related to anyone else, it doesn't make a great deal of sense to make this physical sacrifice to help out an orphan. Nice question. And there they go, on to the next door reserve, where we cannot follow them. We will continue to the south, on the reserve known as Chitwa, for that is where we are now, hoping perhaps to find some tracks of Sibuyi, or her cubs, or Guchava and her cub, whose name I'm no longer allowed to mention, because it doesn't have a name yet. Here we go. Let us now return to the northern parts of Maputaland in KwaZulu-Natal.
Hello again and welcome back. As you can see, we have quite a small herd, but a herd of buffalo in the distance. There's a couple of youngsters in there. I can see almost running around a little bit. I've just had a closer look with my binoculars, and there's actually more than I thought. There's a couple lying down as well, where you can just see their horns sticking up above the grass. Now the wind is definitely picking up in this area. And all of them seem to be facing in more or less a right direction. And they're facing straight into the wind, which is actually what these buffalo do quite a lot of the time, is face straight into the wind, so that if there are any lions or any other predators walking on that side of them, that smell is going to come down with the wind, and they will be able to pick up on that scent. We are still kind of in the area of where we left those young lions a little bit earlier. And for those of you who were watching then, you'll know that the two lionesses, the mothers of those youngsters, were out hunting in this area. So, I mean, you never know. They could be in the area. Not that we've seen any tracks or anything like that. I've just noticed there's actually 2 rhino as well. 3 rhino. Sure, a little bit. I don't know if you'll be able to see myself. If you go a little bit right, much further, there's like straight in line with the top of that hill. If you come in a line straight down, there's a couple of rhinos. Got them? All right, so looks like 3 white rhino in the distance as well. Now this is a perfect area for them, with white rhinos being grazers, same as these buffalo. These big, wide, open grasslands is exactly where we would expect to find them. Now it looks like with those rhinos, there's definitely one big one on the left, and like almost a medium-sized one, which could be a very old calf, and then a small one just to the right of that, which I'm guessing is the mother, which is on the left. I'm guessing it's probably her calf, but we are, sure, I don't know how clear it is for you, but we are probably 500 meters away or so, which is half a kilometer away from there. But really, really nice to see these rhino as well. That's two of the big grazing animals and 2 of the big 5, which are right in this one spot here. And I think you'll probably be able to see in between those rhino, there's a zebra as well. Again, being another animal that grazes on grass. Really perfect area, and not surprised to see zebra or wildebeest out here either. Hi Douglas, you're asking if a buffalo and a rhino would ever fight each other. I've seen, when there's, let's say in winter when there's not a lot of water around, they're both quite dependent on water to drink and also to wallow in the mud. And when there's maybe less water around, there could be, I guess, a little bit of competition for that water. I've never seen them fighting myself, but I have seen other videos of where, buffalo and rhino have fought. So I have seen it before, but I think it's very, very rare. I think they kind of give each other space. They don't bother each other because they're not really competing for food, although they're both eating grass. They eat different levels of grass and different types of grass. And there's so much of it out here that I guess they're not really competing for it at all. Actually looks like all these buffalo seem to be settling down now. There's only about 6 standing up still. The rest have all settled down. Now what they would have been doing is, while the morning was nice and cool, they would have been feeding through this area. And they've got a very interesting digestive system where they've got 4 sections to their stomachs. And they will, like a cow, or you might have seen giraffe and a few other animals doing it, they bring up a cud ball, which is half digested food, and they chew it again. So this morning while they're feeding, they've been eating lots of grass, and now they seem to be all settling down to ruminate and to start digesting all that food that they've eaten this morning. There's a couple of oxpeckers, some birds flying around as well. And there's a couple of birds flying around in between them as well, which are those oxpeckers. And this is a good time for the oxpeckers to go and eat some of the little ticks and parasites on the buffalo. And speaking of ticks and parasites and eating, we're going to send you across to Dylan with the meerkats that are apparently foraging.
So we have one babysitter left here and one other sub-adult. So we're just going to spend a bit more time here. The others have moved off foraging. But coming back to our millipede. So Tracy said 300 legs and Alan said 226. Okay, so the figure that I count, and yes, I can count that high for those of you worried about it, and I have a lot of my friends that know how bad my math skills are. We counted 250 legs on that millipede. So that's pretty cool, and that's just out of interest. So, in terms of the traditional name, a Dason Poort, it's way off. But what I would be interested in now is seeing, well, is there any variation in the mount on different sizes, or do when they hatch out, that's the number of legs they got and that's it, or do they actually start getting more pairs as they go? So I needed a little bit of homework on those. But that individual that we have on the game drive vehicle there, 250 legs. So very, very good guesses. All of the guesses from this morning were really, really good. So well done. But at least we know now, here's a rough average. If you see one of these big millipedes cruising around, kind of in the range of 250 legs. Very cool. So this babysitter was at these burrows just on the right-hand side of there. It's just gone down there. Margot has just asked, can the millipede legs move independently? Yes, they do. And again, I guess it depends, you know, they would have to move independently, otherwise they'd be all moving together. But yeah, they do move independently, and it is amazing. Jean and I were actually looking yesterday once we found that dried exoskeleton of one. Excuse me. We were actually looking, there were a lot of millipede tracks there, and we were hoping to find a live one, because they are the most remarkable animals. And when you look at them, the legs move independently, but like in a ripple fashion, all along like it, all along. And it is just stunning to watch it. So we will keep our eyes peeled. We were even surprised to see the millipede tracks, because going this deep into winter now, there's very, very little insect life around. And they're not insects, just so you know, but just there's a lot of very few arthropods around now. Cobalt has asked, did we count one side and multiply it by 2, or did we count the pairs? We actually counted the pairs. So there's 125 pairs, there's 250 legs on the millipede. And some of them were broken off, so we even counted those segments where you can see legs were, and you know, they've been broken off because it's been dried out, it's been lying in the sun, you know, with movement around it for quite a long time, we assume. But we counted all those pairs, and including where the legs should have been. That's what we got to. We may have missed a couple, but I think it was a fairly close count at least. Taser was asked, why is it called a millipede? Because it has less than 1,000 legs. It's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. And like we say, even a number of these colloquial names for it, a duisendpoot in Afrikaans means 1,000 legs, and they definitely don't have 1,000 legs. In fact, if anyone's ever seen a millipede with 1,000 legs, please let me know and what species it is and where I can go see it, because I would love to see one with 1,000 legs. But they are great little animals. And they're different to centipedes. Just while we're on the pede part. That sounds awful. Centipedes and millipedes are very, very different. Centipedes are actually predators, and their legs also a lot less than 1,000. But their front legs, their first, very, very, very first pair of legs are actually modified into venom vesicles. So they actually so they don't bite the prey with their mouth part. Initially, they actually use their front pair of legs are modified, and they can stab the prey with their front legs, and they inject venom like that. Those are centipedes. These little millipedes that we're seeing around here, you can pick them up. They'll like nibble on your hand, but they can do no harm. They're not venomous. They're not dangerous. Certainly none of the ones that we get in our areas. But centipedes are very, very different, and they are super fast, active little predators, and they can give a very, very nasty bite sometimes. So I'm just seeing in the very far distance, they've just gone behind some bushes, the meerkats have gone foraging. We know there's at least one. We think there's actually maybe even a second one that has remained behind at the burrows. So we're just going to spend a bit more time here and sit it out a bit.
So we haven't seen any other tracks of these lions that we were looking out for this morning. Also, no sign of leopard or even elephants. And I think with the elephants, it's because of the wind. Sometimes if there's a bit of a wind blowing, they'll move into some cover. But also with the lions, we would have expected them like lying down somewhere probably where there's a bit more sun, so somewhere like in this riverbed. But unfortunately, we haven't seen anything yet. And I think it's only later on when they might even start moving. You'll notice often in winter time they'll move for quite a bit of the evening, but sometimes early in the morning they might just bunker down for a little bit and then from there start moving. So we're going to give it one more good go down here, and if we don't find any from here on, we're going to give it this afternoon another try. But we are currently in the beautiful Timbavati River, and we're basically just going to we're just going to basically drive as far as we can down here and see if there's any other signs of these lines. So what I'm looking out for is any tracks that might come down from the bank and possibly cross into the river.
Hello everyone and welcome back again to Phinda Private Game Reserve. And we've come a little bit closer. For those of you who were watching about 10 minutes ago, we saw these rhinos from a distance, and luckily for us they're right next to a road, so we came a bit closer. Now it's actually quite an interesting setup going on here. The one that's in the distance there is the mother with the small calf just on the right, and this one closest to us is actually a male that's obviously found her and following her around just to see if she's maybe coming into estrus and ready to mate, although she definitely won't be if she's got a small calf like this. But this is really amazing. If you have a close look at this male, remember I was talking about the buffalo and the rhinos competing if there's very little water. If you have a close look at the male's skin, he's got mud, dried mud all over him. And I was talking about them wallowing in the mud, especially on hot days, so maybe even later today he might do it again. But this looks like it was from late yesterday or even last night that he's been in the mud. Oh, the little young one's crossing over the road now. Now this young one, to try and tell the age of it, if you look where its second horn will start growing, there's nothing yet, and it's around about 1 year old when that second horn starts growing, so he's definitely less than a year old. And as soon as we got here, Marcel guessed the age, and I said I agree, and we estimated it to be around about 9 months old. Probably, maybe even closer to a year, but somewhere around there. Really beautiful to see. I'm just going to drive up a little bit forward on the road and try and get another good view of her. It was quite funny, as soon as we got here, the mom lifted up her tail and started defecating, but the calf went and put its head right there, and literally all the dung landed on the calf's face. So I'll show you. I saw when we were looking earlier, the one side of the calf's face is all wet from it, which is pretty gross. There, you'll probably see it now. Is that okay? Kruger, you're asking if this is a full family unit? No, it isn't. It's the mom and her calf, which will always be together. Well, for the first 2.5, 3, even 3 years of age, they're going to be together. And then this male here that's closest to us, he's just picked up her scent or maybe seen her, and he's just following her around a little bit to see if it's maybe a female that is ready to mate, in which case he would obviously want to mate with her. But this big male, this will all be part of his territory. And that's why he's following this female and her calf around. Often when it's a little bit of a windy day like today, you start seeing seeing them heading into the bushes. Morning, Cam. Yes. So this calf at this stage might just try and drink, but its mother won't let it anymore. It would have already been weaned off of milk by now and probably just eating grass. But the first about 2 months of its life, it's almost going to only drink milk. It's not going to feed on grass. And then for the last little while, it probably would have been doing a little bit of both. But now it will just solely be eating grass. It You see how close it stays to the mother as well. Very, very close. And even still at this age where it's really quite a solid little animal, it's still in danger from things like lions that would obviously gang up on it. So it's nice to, I guess the young one feels a lot safer with his mom around there as well, who's a lot bigger than any lion. There, you can actually see that wetness I was talking about on the calf's face. So I think he put his head in at the wrong place. Hi, Kathy. No, they're not. I have seen them with older, when a female has quite an old calf, the male might chase it away. But with young calves like that, no. Maybe because she's in his territory, he might think, oh, it must be my calf. But no, they don't kill the baby rhinos. It seems to be more a predator thing to do. I wonder if those rhinos think they're hidden behind that bush. Sorry, as I was saying just now, they often on a windy day like it's starting to get now, they might head into some trees. So we'll stick with these rhinos for a little bit longer, but for now we're going to link you over to Dylan quickly.
So that's one of the babysitters over there. Just chatting with Veronique, the lady that's doing the Meerkat habituation. She says over the past couple of days they've actually been leaving 2 babysitters behind when the group goes foraging, which is quite interesting. And we are still seeing the ones that went foraging in the near distance of here. They actually probably still only about 50 yards from where we are, but behind some bushes. So you know, that's a hop, skip and a jump for a meerkat to run. They'll cover that distance in a couple of seconds. So there's still the chance that another one of the meerkats that is here will actually move off with the rest of the group. But it is interesting to note that from Veronique's observations that sometimes they leave more than one babysitter. I walked in the rain, has asked, so if the millipede was missing legs, would it limp? I guess so. I think they would. There's a joke about that. I just can't remember it. Like a millipede with a wooden leg. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll remember it. So we're just gonna spend the next couple of minutes here. Like I say, I mean they've pretty much headed out, and there's at least 2 babysitters here that we know of, and I think we're gonna just spend the next couple of minutes here and then move off from where we are.
WildEarth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the WildEarth family.
Thanks, Dylan. From his meerkats darting off, these rhinos are definitely not as quick, but they're also moving off in a much slower fashion. The mother and the calf are leading it and just slowly moving into those bushes that I was talking about, which just give them a bit of protection or a bit of a false sense of security. Hi, Anushka. This calf will stay with its mother now for probably another 2 or even 3 years. in which time she will have another, she'll mate again and she'll be pregnant again. But then before she gives birth with that next one, she will move away from this calf, and that's normally in the region of about 3.5 years old. I've been watching the male, the bull, and he's walking around and he's actually scent marking on some of the trees and on some of the bushes, and it's quite interesting. I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's a huge like spray of urine that sprays up onto trees and bushes that are behind him. And it's just another cue or a pointer that tells us that he's a big dominant bull. Barmy, no, there's no difference. It is urine that he's using to mark his territory, and it's all the same liquid that comes out. So he's been doing it a few times, and I think we'll just stick and see if he does it again. The first sign that you'll see that he is about to spray is that his tail, I mean, they've got a short little tail with some wiry hairs on the bottom, and his tail will curl up, will lift up. Wow, he is full of mud from yesterday. He must have gone, it's like right on the top of his back, so he must have laid down in a mud wallow somewhere and really rolled almost all the way over. Even the mother I see too, she's also got a lot of mud on her side there. Butterfly, with them being so big, there's, straight away it rules out things like cheetah, because cheetah are quite small and not very strong. So it straight away rules out cheetah as a predator, and even leopard as well. Leopards are solitary, so it's too big of an animal to be able to take down for a leopard. So it's only lions. Lions are the only ones that have a chance at catching rhinos, but again, it's not the big adult rhinos that are scared, it's the young ones. So young ones are the only ones that are worried about lions. But thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for watching today. I hope you've had an amazing game drive with all of us, and I hope we see you again this afternoon.